All right, people, I'm back. Today is Saturday, and today is going to be season 2 of my music series, Who's Better. Today's episode is going to be Avenger Sevenfold versus Metalica. Yeah! Woo! So, the reason why I brought the music series back is because there are a lot of musical artists that never got put into my series, and I feel like that there's a lot of great bands that are missing. And season 2, we might have just 5 to 10 episodes, maybe 11 episodes. So I don't want no one to say, "Hey man, you forgot my favorite rap artist, or you forgot my favorite rock band. How dare you?" So this is the first episode of season 2, and it's gonna be Avengers Sevenfold versus Metallica, Battle of the Rock Bands. Now, Avengers Sevenfold, they started their career in the late 1990s, early 2000s, and nobody knew who they were. They were from Huntington Beach, and these guys were inspired by other rock bands of the 1980s and early 90s. And the lead singer, he had a long nickname, so he abbreviated his nickname. I think they call him M. So he had a nickname, and he was the lead singer. Now their first album, got 100 copies to 1,000 copies. Surprise, surprise, their first hit single was a big hit in California. Then they came out with their second big hit, and that was a big hit. At that time, I didn't even know who the hell these guys were. Like, I saw people in high school wearing t-shirts, and I kind of thought at the time they were like a ripoff of Korn and Saliva and Disturbed. So I didn't pay no attention to these guys. Like, I didn't listen to their music. And by the time I got into college, they had already done 3 albums. Like, seriously, by the time I got into college, they did 3 albums. But there was this one rock song that I kept hearing by the time I left West LA College and went to Los Angeles City College in 2010 or in 2011. They had done 5 albums. And there was this one rock song. And this is how I found out they were really good. Hail to the King. Dun 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 dun. Once I saw them and their music in video games and somebody playing their song and getting kicked out of the library, that's when I started to go, like, let me go see who these guys are. And then they started making songs about war, peace, love, death, and they had a badass feel to their rock song. Like, when you listen to these guys, they don't remind you of Korn, Disturbed, or Saliva. These guys got that 1980s feel when you listen to their songs. And then of course there's This Means War. And then I started to go, okay, these guys are not that bad. These guys are okay. These guys sound like they're gonna be around for a long time. And by the time I, stayed in college, they had popped out album number 6, album number 7, and they're currently working on album number 8. So these guys have been around for about 12 years, 12 to 13 years. And they're just getting to album number 8. And these guys have done songs with some of your favorite rock bands. You might find it hard to believe, but some of their music does make it into video games. It does make it into television shows, commercials, and that's what they're known for. And these guys, and their own, as I believe in the next 10 years, these guys will become known as icons, legends, because they've been around and they're still irrelevant. Now, their opponent is Metalica. Now, Metallica is a hardcore, badass rock band from the 1980s. So I would say maybe 5 years before I was born, because I was born in January 1986. So these guys were an underground rock band in a rock community, and these guys popped out of nowhere. And at the time, they were being compared to, rock bands of their time period. And these guys would do stuff that was so edgy, so unpredictable, so in your face that a lot of people didn't know what to make of these guys. You know, their first album was just talking about, you know, blowing shit up. And people's like, what kind of rock band talks about blowing some shit up? But they were talking about blowing stuff up. You know, it was talking about death and guts and metal and iron. And people be like, what the hell? And the only exposure that I got from this group was when MTV came on, when VH1 was introduced to us on cable. When Michael Jackson was talking about how they didn't want to have no multi-talented artists from another race on their show, you know, I think they would have Metalica and a number of other artists say, yeah, maybe it's time we allow some new artists to come on this show and showcase their talent. And I just saw pictures of these guys in books and magazines. I didn't really hear none of their music. You know, their first album, platinum. Their second album, double platinum. Their third album, double platinum. So their first 3 albums, I never heard it because I wasn't born yet. Now, by the time we get to 1988, 1990, and I'm able to walk and talk a little bit, I couldn't even listen to their 4th album. It was like loud noise to me. It ain't until I get like maybe 12 or 13 when they've already put out album number 5 and album number 6 that I see these guys again, and I'm like, they're talking about blowing some shit up again. They're talking about sex, rock, and roll, and blow some shit up. And they came out with Sandman. And I started thinking that they were talking about Sandman from Jean-Claude Van Damme's movie Death Warrant. And my friend was like, no. Metallica made a song called Sandman. You got to listen to it. And at that point, I was kind of arrogant because I thought I knew all the music that was the know. And my homeboy Charles was like, nah, mother, Metallica is a 1980s band. You need to go do your research, dog. Them guys ain't rap music. Them guys are straight hardcore rock in your face. You know, and I saw somebody in high school who had a big ass book called The History of Rock and Roll. And in that rock and roll, it had a list of all their great songs, all their accomplishments. Now, when they popped out album number 6 and album number 7, some of their music started to get into a lot of these movies. A lot of these movies, you know, a lot of these science fiction films, a lot of these horror films, you know, a lot of their music started to get into these movies. They were starting to take rock bands from the 80s and the 90s and start putting their songs into these movies. And that's when I started to nod my head to their music. And when I found out that it was them that I was nodding my head to, I would go on the internet and type up Metallica and listen to some of their music. And I said, I like these motherfuckers. These motherfuckers might be old and a bit aged, but they still can kick ass. Like, they can get on that guitar and still kick your ass. And I would go type up live concerts, and then my homeboy that I used to be friends with told me, there's a lot of rock bands that you need to go research. And I told him about Avenged, Sevenfold, and he kind of ripped into the group and said, they're manufactured, they're not that good. And I said, come on, man, they seem legit to me. They seem pretty good. You know, but he wasn't convinced. So now today, one group has 8 albums, and Metallica's got like 9 to 10 albums. Now the question we gotta ask ourselves, who is better? Now, everyone keeps saying Avenger Sevenfold is a ripoff or a hardened copy of Metallica because they have that same edginess to their music. Like, they're being greatly compared to them. And both bands, by the way, are from California. If you can find that hard to believe, both are from California. Now, there's an old saying that I heard when I was in junior high and in high school, and it still holds true today. And that is, legends never die. They might get sick. You may not see them for 5 or 10 years. You may not see them for 15 years. They might go in and out of rehab. They might be in and out of jail. They might get married and have kids. They might get a regular job like a normal person. But by the end of the day, rock legends never die. Metallica is gonna take it by a nice edge simply because they've been around a lot longer. The 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, they've been around for three plus decades. And whenever someone think of blowing some shit up, people usually think of them before they think of Avenger Sevenfold. Like, there's nothing wrong with Avenger Sevenfold because they do talk about death a lot in their music. Like, they're always talking about going to the battlefield with a gun or coming out with a sword and riding on the horse and talking about the apocalypse. They do talk about that in their music. But by the end of the day, Metallica wins because they've been around a lot longer. And this group, they need another 10 years to jail, and only in time will tell will they be on the same level. So this is the first episode. Next time on my music series, it's going to be Carly B versus a familiar female. No, it's not Nicki Minaj, but you'll be surprised who it is. Until next time, peace.